Welcome back to CFB Nation. I am your host, Nino Brown. You already see my partner on the screen, Mr. Get It Done, aka Nino. And you know the deal. When we're both on the screen together, it's that time. It's Devy Darling's time. Before we jump right into it, my guy, how was your weekend? How are we doing tonight?
Good. Hawks won, so that's always a plus. CFB's got a crazy, exciting week this week, so super excited.
Deacon Hill? Is that the new flavor of the week? Is that what we're riding?
No comment.
It's funny because I think we're going to mention that gentleman again pretty soon in this episode. But I'm going to try to be impartial for this one. As many of you guys know, I cover BC for CFB Nation. I'm a resident there for the 7 games they have at home. So I've been watching this gentleman for a while. And if you don't know, you know now. It's Thomas Castellanos. Is he the next Devy Darling? We're gonna put the pieces out there on the table, and then we'll let you guys decide by the end of the year. 5'10", 196 pounds, right? Out of Waycross, Georgia. He went to Ware County High School. He's a former 3-star recruit, and many say that he was the top running, quote unquote, athlete in the quarterback group. He's a 3-sport athlete, right? He played football, soccer, and track and field. Tell me a little bit more about Castellanos.
Yeah, so he was an Atlanta Journal-Constitution Super 11 team, which football in Georgia, it's crazy. So
Yeah.
anytime you make some sort of team, you're the dog.
Yeah.
First team All-State, again, crazy. 10-2 record as a junior and a berth into the 5A playoffs.
Hey,
So,
yeah, like Georgia's like Texas. You start adding the A's, right? You know what I mean? That's how the talent level starts going up. Now he was the 37th ranked overall athlete in the 2022 class, right? When he committed to UCF. And he hit the portal, and we're going to break down a little bit of that stuff. But I want you guys, before we give stats and what he's at this year and where everything else, I want you to know where the quote-unquote professionals had this guy boxed in the transfer portal, all right? He was the 47th ranked QB in the 2023 transfer portal. He was boxed in right around guys like Peyton Thorne, who was at 43, Mike Wright at 44, Houston's QB, former Texas Tech commit, Donovan Smith was at 35. We're all familiar with Casey Thompson, right? Nebraska, FAU. He was at 39. Jake Plummer, 35. Louisville QB right now doing well. Your guy, Deacon Hill, was 48. Haynes King was 49. And ex-BC Eagle, Phil Jerkovich at 36. And I'm going to have to say, out of these gentlemen on this list, he might be 2 to Haynes King so far out of the portal. Am I crazy for saying that?
No, I honestly would put him at number 3.
Okay.
Haynes King and Plummer, I think, would be the 2 that have the most argument to be above him. But
okay.
2, 3 around the same area.
All right. I'm with it. Talk to me a little bit about Ware County and what he did.
So yeah, Ware County High School, his junior year, he played 12 games, passed for 2,281 yards, 59% completion, 23 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. He rushed for almost 1,000 yards, 939 yards with, get this, 24 touchdowns, averaged 5.5 yards per carry, and he had 3 100-yard games.
Running back numbers. It's running back numbers.
Yeah, I mean, again, 5A Georgia, and you're rushing for almost 1,000 yards and 24 touchdowns. Like, Yeah,
St-
that's
Dumb.
4-star running back numbers.
Yeah.
His senior year, played 12 games again, uh, bumped up his numbers a little, almost or just a little over 2,600 yards through the air, 25 touchdowns. His interceptions did go up. He had 9, um, but again, he had 968 yards rushing, 13 touchdowns, averaged 7.1 yards per carry. And this his senior year, he had 5 100-yard from for a quarterback to have multiple 100-yard rushing games, almost 1,000 yards back to back, and also improving on your completion percentage. I mean, what's not to love?
Yeah, right. I'll take the hit on a couple picks, three or four extra picks when you were more dialed in when you're throwing the ball, right? You never, your legs, the numbers and what you did with your legs didn't fall off, really. I mean, 7 yards per clip, you were better per carry than you were the previous year. I mean, in a body of work in high school, 47 games, just under 60%, 58-4. It's 7,710 passing yards, 66 TDs, 26 INTs. This is just gaudy. 3,600 rush yards, 69 touchdowns. And as a career over 4 years, he averaged 5.5 yards per carry. I mean, that's just crazy. Like the numbers alone stand for themselves. We say it all the time. Men lie, women lie. No, numbers don't. I mean, the kid's got athletic ability and talent. So talk to me a little bit about, like I said, he committed to UCF, but talk to us about it and what had happened.
So yeah, December 15th of 21, he committed to UCF. He enrolled uh, January 1st, or I'm sorry, July 1st. He had other offers from Florida State, FAU. At UCF, he played 5 games, attempted 14 passes, had 120 yards and a touchdown. Um, and then
That that was his ground game. That was his
oh,
total
that was
ground game.
ground game.
Yeah.
Okay. And then through the air, he went 9 for 16 for 75 yards, 56.3% completion, but he didn't have a touchdown or interception.
Right.
So then April 20th of that year, he announced that he was going to hit the transfer portal, and then 10 days later, which I think in this day and age is ridiculous,
Right.
unless you already kind of have something. I don't want to say anything tangible on it, but unless you have something going, he commits to BC.
Right. And I know April was kind of later in the portal, but that's pretty quick. Like you said, maybe you had something you thought or an opportunity you thought was better, or maybe he was kind of seeing what Plumlee was going to do, right? Plumlee was coming off an injury, kind of wasn't sure if he was going to, return, if he was going to take his chances, hit the portal, or maybe hit the draft. But nobody kind of knew, is he going to commit all baseball because he's a stud two-sport athlete? So there was a lot of questions. I mean, Castellanos obviously going to UCF fit that system because I think we're going to touch on this guy a little later, but Gus Malzahn, right? Molded a guy when he was at a different team in the SEC. And they kind of were the same script. And I think UCF fits that script of what Castellanos can do and how they play ball. But it seems as though in the ACC right now, looks like Boston College is going to take that script and they're slowly changing what they thought because, I'm over there and I was able to see the transition. We all thought it was Emmett Morehead, okay? Brought Emmett Morehead down to Charlotte for media day. When they bring guys down to media day, they're pretty much cemented in as their guys. Well, 9 passes into week 1 against NIU. Out comes Thomas Castellanos, and he really hasn't looked back, okay? And it was rusty. Don't get me wrong. Those first 2 weeks, NIU, Holy Cross, I was like, oh, hold on to your pants. This is going to be a long ride. But you see what he brought to the table. Just in that first game, I told you, we saw Madden. Like, it was Madden in the flesh, right? He had that drop back. He got rushed in by 2 guys. You saw it in the intro. He went back like 26 yards, made a juke move, got some space, rolled back out, and completed a first down pass to Lewis Bond. And then that was kind of like, okay, that was his announcement. I'm here. This is what I can bring to the table. And we've kind of seen those, like, maybe not as dramatic. That was a crazy drop back there. But, like, how his athleticism keeps them in every play. Even when they're getting dominated in the first half, how he can kind of put the team on his back, right? And they just don't know. Is he going to roll out and do a dump pass? Like I mentioned to you in the green room, it was hard for me to get a play comp on him, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
this his legs are obviously his number one asset, which I always say is my problem with Justin Fields. If you're a quarterback, your arm has to be numero uno. But he's developing the game, and we saw Justin Fields kind of develop the game. But I think management's holding Justin Fields back. I believe at this point now because he's flashed a little bit.
Mhm.
Castellanos had games. Florida State. I think you're going to touch on it in a little bit. Even in Louisville, where you've seen, okay, all right, he's got that. He could throw that peppered 20-yard out, but they also, run guys down the field 30 yards, 40 yards, and he doesn't have, I don't believe yet he hasn't mastered that, that deep ball. He's 87 and 151 on the year, right? 1,100 yards, 10 touchdowns, 5 picks. Um, but on the ground, leads all QBs with 500 yards rushing on 98 attempts. That's 5.1 yards per carry, 7 touchdowns. That's total 17 total touchdowns out of your quarterback this year. I'll take that for a kid who's been with them for like 3 months, didn't really know that he was going to be the starter, got thrown into the fire and hit the ground running. And don't say it out loud, too loud, but there's a chance that they could be bowling at the end of this with the way that they're going back-to-back W's. And they were in a game against Florida State that nobody thought that they could be in. Have they turned the page? We don't know, but it seems like Thomas Castellanos has turned the page. And why don't you tell us why you think he's turned the page?
Yeah, so like you said, he's kind of had his flashes where we've actually got to see what he could actually be.
Right.
Week 3 versus Florida State against that tough defense, completed 60% of his passes, 305 yards, a touchdown. He did have a pick, but he also rushed for 16 attempts, 95 yards, and a touchdown.
I'll
So
take
that's
that.
when people were like, okay, who's this kid in Boston College?
Right.
Then week 5 against Louisville, like you said, he did kind of slip a little, only about 52% completion. He had 265 yards. He did have 3 touchdowns and 49 yards rushing and a touchdown. But last week against Army, or 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry, against
Yeah, in a
Army,
monsoon.
yeah, in the Rain Bowl, he rushed it for 31 attempts, 142 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Like, what I liked about that is it was obviously crappy conditions, but he still put the team on his back. It was like, we're not losing this game. And he's like, I don't care what I have to do. If I have to run it 31 times, that's what we're going to do and we're going to win. So that's what I loved about it.
Right. Yeah. You're seeing. So in that game, what I liked was the fact that you saw some growth. I wasn't gonna try to make the mistake. Right. It's hard to throw the ball. I can run it with my legs. The guys up front are moving the pocket. They're moving the line. I'm getting space. I'm going to take what I can get. I'm not going to try to force something, even if it's a little 5-yard out where the ball comes out my hand funny. And next thing I know, that one play that takes it to the crib or puts them in good field position for 3. And now my team is battling, from behind all game. They
Mm.
were battling behind down the stretch. And he's like, okay, I know what I got to do. And he did it. Like I said, they're slowly tailoring this offense to his capabilities. His passing game is slowly starting to grow. We've seen it. He's got a connection with Bond. He's growing a small connection with Griffin and Takis. I mean, Takis kind of has stone hands this year, so that doesn't really help him as much. But in the tight end there, I'm gonna let you go with the player comp because I think you hit it on the head. I did a little more digging because I went for what he could be if he develops a little more. I think where he's at right now, that was the name I had. I erased it.
So yeah, I kind of have 2, and it's solely just based on his athleticism. The first
Okay.
one was Nick Marshall from Auburn. Like you
Yeah.
said, I think he's almost a clone of what Gus had with Nick.
Yeah.
I think hence why he went to UCF
Yeah.
initially. But like there, not a lot of people know Nick Marshall also started at wide receiver. He
Right.
tried DB for a little bit before he
Exactly.
played quarterback. And then the other name I have is Lynn Bowden Jr. from Kentucky. Just because, like we were talking in the green room, you could put this kid anywhere on the field for BC, and
Yeah.
I think he starts for him. These guys were just athletic
Freak.
studs,
Yeah.
and I think that's kind of the category that Castellanos fits in.
Yeah. I mean, Bottom played DB, wide receiver, running back. He kind of played a little bit of everything. Like you put him on everyone on the field, special teams, right? He was just a dude. I when I you could play Nick Marshall, right? You play YouTube highlight and then play a current Thomas Castellanos highlight, and you would be like, oh, okay. Marshall was a little bit taller, a little bit leaner, right? A little
Mhm.
bit, but the style, just the way they threw the ball, the way they run, it's always you never know. Like they kind of Marshall was a little bit ahead of his time. I think the guy my comp, like I said in the green, I think was a little bit ahead of his time as well. I think if he was to get plucked and played in right this time era, I think he would have much more success than he did when he came into the league. But Marshall was a little bit. I think if Marshall played now, we would be like, oh, Auburn looks good. Get this kid to rock a little bit more. There would be no Peyton Thorne, that's for sure. I'll give you
No,
that. I put in a thing. I made a graphic and I put it on CFB Nation. Bo Nix and Jared Stidham were the best QBs um, since Cam Newton. And the only reason why I didn't have Marshall because his time at QB was shortened, right? As a QB. Anyway, the other guys had a couple years at their position, but had he played 4 years, man, whoo. But my guy was an ex-Hokie. Okay, he's traveled around. He had a chance where we thought it was going to be his time, and the stupid medical staff jabbed him in the lung and to Justin Herbert. And that was the end of pretty much Tyrod Taylor's NFL career. He was just a journeyman, never got that Geno Smith chance to pop, right? Which would have been that chance, I think, with the Chargers because you had the wide receivers like Geno had, you had the running game like Geno. It was pretty much a mirrored setup. But yeah, Tyrod Taylor coming out of Virginia Tech was just a guy. Like I really think if his game resonates right now, he would be like guy out of Houston. I mentioned Donovan Smith, right? Like there's Tyrod Taylor. Got a deep ball, got a cannon, stays elusive, extends the pocket. Not going to get you 900 yards rushing, but in college, Tyrod Taylor could probably got you anywhere between mid 500s, to high sixes, depending on the season. He just was able to be elusive. So my comp is Tyrod Taylor. I think Nick Marshall is 100% stamped approved, but I'm going might go for NFL comp. I don't think Nick Marshall even sniffed an NFL team, or
not just
maybe
practice squads.
yeah. So give me Tyrod Taylor, but I think Dino hit it out the park with the Nick Marshall one.
Let me ask you one. There's potentially two others that I could have named, but I'll just throw one out there. Um, when I was watching him, not so much. Well, I guess even passing, but RG3 was another one I almost put down there.
See, for me,
Granted, RG3 is a little taller.
you got a Heisman. Okay,
That's a whole different story. If he should have won the Heisman that year
all
or
right,
not,
but the numbers. I don't know if Castellanos could come anywhere close to those numbers because yes, I put RG3 in the 60-40 had a deep ball arm, right? Like
Mhm.
60% of the time the ball looked good. Then there were 40% of the time when the ball just made it there somehow,
Yeah,
some way, and
get
looked
the dogs at receiver.
duckish. Yeah. So I see the comp there. I just think a little bit taller, but had more of an arm than Castellanos. I think
Okay.
Castellanos sits in that short intermediate box, right? Where RG3 could play in the deep ball box, but he played in the intermediate sandbox as well. But he was able to play. Castellanos right now ain't playing in that, but he's not allowed.
Okay.
Who was the other comp you had besides RG3? I want to know the
Uh,
other one.
so again, he doesn't have the arm strength as this person that I was gonna, but I think the watching film scheme wise when he was at Nevada, uh, Kaepernick.
Okay, if you were to shrink Kaepernick,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
granted, he's not as big and he doesn't have
but
the
I
arm,
get I
but
get the
scheme wise,
elusiveness to it because
yeah.
Kaepernick has that kind of hold the ball kind of loose, run
Hmm.
around, make a play. I'll sidearm it. I can throw the ball different levels off different platforms. I'm with you there. Not a true passer. He really wasn't a true passer,
Yeah.
Kaepernick, right? It was kind of like secondary to him. So I like it. We both agree that the comp of all comps is chalk, and everybody will say it's the lazy man comp because it's the same school. But I mean, Fruity Flakes, Doug Flutie got to be like the closest overall player comp to Castellanos. I mean, like I said in the green one, I think Flutie had a little bit stronger arm because he could chuck that ball deep. I don't know how accurate it was. We all know the miracle play, but that was just a miracle play.
But again, Heisman Trophy winner. You want to comp him to a Heisman Trophy winner?
That's why I didn't. That's you see what I'm saying? Like
No,
it's
I
like,
got you. I just had to
but
throw him
it's the
out.
same school. But like, yeah, exactly. I'm with you. And maybe that's his ceiling, right? That is. But
BC
where's his
could only
floor?
dream that that's
Right.
his ceiling.
We'll try to find his floor. You know what I'm saying? And we're up there. Right. Granted, Flutie had the Heisman year, but let's talk about Heisman his career and not just the Heisman year,
No,
right?
yeah,
Like,
I know.
yeah, and then maybe his freshman year he might be closer. Like I said, Castellanos is a sophomore. Hopefully, we get him for 2 more. Who knows this day and age? Maybe you get him for 3 if he's starting to pop at the end of the second one, or maybe he goes on to bigger and better things. We'll see. I think that coaching staff decision is going to matter as well. But I'm Nino Brown. That's my guy, Mr. Get It Done, Dino. Shout out to KT, the governor of college football. He produces every one of these episodes. He's an absolute dog machine. I love him to death.
Yes, sir.
This is Devy Darling on the CFB Nation. We out. Randall.